Hi guys, welcome to the July edition of the CIN Gaming Podcast with me, Sam Jones, and I'm also joined again by Chantal Stewart-Jones. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thanks. How are you, Sam?
Not too bad, thank you. Obviously we're going to talk a little bit about a certain app that came out a couple of weeks ago. Some of you might have heard of it, some of you might not have heard of it. Pokemon Go, taking the world by storm. Had about 15 million downloads already, and that's probably increasing by the day. Chantal, you've got a few interesting stories which have been highlighted in the national press, some of which aren't so positive. What's been happening?
Well, I noticed quite a few this week. Players in Bosnia have been warned if they're exploring to be careful of minefields, which may have been left over from the wars in the 90s, the areas that might not have been cleared. I think there were some players that were spotted exploring a little too close for comfort. And so the authorities have said over there, do be careful. There are still mines lying around, so please don't venture too far. I don't think anything has happened there negatively yet, but they've put out the warning just in case. And the one that I found quite amusing, because it's a little bit, common sense. There was a guy, it was reported in the New York Post that a guy was caught cheating on his girlfriend because of the GPS tracking on the app, because obviously it shows you the area where the Pokemon's caught, and his girlfriend found on his phone that one of the Pokemon that he caught was at his ex-girlfriend's house. And I did find that one quite amusing.
Oh dear.
And there was two guys in San Diego who fell off a 90-foot cliff because they were trying to catch, I assume some sort of water Pokemon, and they had to be rescued and, hoisted up by the fire service, I think. I think one of them fell about 80 foot onto the beach below, and one of them fell about 50 foot down the cliffside. I think they're both okay, so that's good news. But it definitely highlights the warning that the game gives you at the start to be aware of your surroundings at all times.
Yeah, it's not even as if it's just like a little warning that's hidden away in the About section, or it's something that's come in a reader's manual. This is something that pops up on the screen straight away, which is quite cool with the little theme tune that kicks off. And most of us have seen that screen for more than 2 minutes anyway, what with the server problems.
And it is one of the first things you see as well.
Yeah.
It does it straight away every time that you load up the game. So, there is the warning there. And I think, some people perhaps need to pay a bit more attention to that.
Yeah, I think the stupidity of some people will just cause these problems, and unfortunately that gives it quite a lot of bad press. But honestly, for me, the app's been fantastic, bar the obvious server problems. It's such a nostalgic journey, especially for people our age who have grown up with the actual franchise. I mean, I remember it was 96, wasn't it, when it came out, obviously, because of the 20-year anniversary this year. And 5-year-old me just remembers this TV show that started, and about this kind of fictional world where a kid called Ash is going around and catching Pokemon and training them. I thought, wow, this is amazing. And then obviously the franchise has got bigger, merchandise. I've lost count of the amount of soft Pokemon toys that I used to get from the Beanie Baby store. I had a massive collection of those. Had most of the Game Boy games, which I was addicted to. It's a fantastic franchise, and I'm so glad this has come back. And this has actually got me interested back in the franchise, rather than just kind of thinking, well, I might try one of the Game Boy games at some point, or the Nintendo DS games now, because I don't know about you, but I like the fact that this is currently just the original 150 Pokemon, because there seems to be too many up to date, like in current generation of Pokemon players. I think we're talking about 750, aren't we?
Something like that. And yeah, it is really nice. I like the nostalgia of it is something that people are really tapping into, and it's a game I think as well that everyone can play. Where I live, I've seen people aged 7, 8, up to about 10 years old, and then I've seen people who are like 26, 29, all going out, all playing, all walking around. They're all doing the same thing. It's a very social game.
Yeah.
I've stopped and chatted to a few people to compare Pokemon, see what everyone's doing, see what everyone's level is. And it really does encourage you to get out and talk to people, and also get out and be active.
Yeah, well, that's the thing as well, isn't it? Where this isn't an app where it's simply catching them all inside your house. I mean, fair enough, I've been kind of laid in my bedroom a few nights and there's a Pidgey's appeared at the end of my bed. It's like, okay, you've made this really easy for me. But yeah, no, it's great for, like I've said in the recent feature that I wrote on it for the Herald, it's great for your legs and great for your lungs, because you're out there and you're getting active, and like you said, you're meeting new people. I went to Sutton Park last weekend and stopped at one of the main maps for the park, which was just so happens to be a Pokemon gym, and there was a couple there out with the phones, and I just said, Pokemon Go? And they went, absolutely, obviously. And they were just kind of laughing about it, and they actually took control of the gym a couple of minutes later, which I was going to have a fight with them, but they were about 300 levels higher than me, so I've kind of left it. I have only tried one Pokemon gym battle, which was on that day, and didn't go well.
No, the main issue I found with gyms, especially in my area, because I live in a very rural area, so the number of gyms and Pokestops is very limited, and the number of Pokemon spawning in is also very limited. But the thing I found is that the people who downloaded the game before it was officially released in the UK, so they had it about 5 days earlier, they have managed to play through the game and level up significantly faster than I have and than other players have, which means that all of the gyms in the area tend to be controlled by them, and they're really difficult to beat because they're just so much higher level than most other people.
Yeah, the main Tamworth gym in the town centre, which is down by St Editor's Church, I mean, someone must have had that for quite a while, because we're talking someone's probably at least rank 15 down there. I've not been playing it every day, other than maybe catching maybe a Pidgey a day or something like that. A Pidgey a day keeps the doctors away, as someone said. But I've just managed to reach level 9. It's just great. I mean, a couple of nights ago I had a walk around Four Oaks in Sutton Coldfields. Did a loop around Four Oaks and Mere Green for probably about an hour or so, and caught some decent Pokemon. And because it was night as well, which is good, which people might not be aware of, that certain Pokemon only come out at night. You might find more ghost Pokemon that way. And at certain days in the week they swap round, and there's your common ones. There's a lot of Rattatas and Pidgeys and Weedles, and
Yes.
I think everyone must have a Pidgey on by now, because they've caught so many Pidgeys that they can trade them in for candy, and which sounds really cruel, by the way. I know catching Pokemon would sound animal cruelty central anyway, but yeah, kind of almost like just recycling them for a candy, aren't you?
Yes, somebody did raise the point to me the other day. Do you think that the professor is turning the Pokemon into candies because you trade them in and you get a candy in return? And I was like, oh, that's something I hadn't thought about before, and probably don't really want to think about, but it did make me giggle. It was an interesting point, an interesting theory.
And it's hilarious how some of these memes and videos have gone around, especially with that one where it's sort of like they've kind of shown like a mincemeat conveyor belt where they're chucking EVs in and candies are coming out. But I think another thing as well, there's been a few groups that have set up on Facebook and social media where they're offering lots of really helpful tips actually on how to catch certain Pokemon, where to look, the egg hatching thing as well, which is quite a neat feature. Anyone who hasn't grabbed the concept of the eggs, when you get one you need to put it in an incubator and basically walk, don't you? You have 2 kilometres, 5 kilometres and 10 kilometres, and obviously the furthest you have to walk, the more rare are the Pokemon. And another great thing I like about this app is that it has sort of a system where it knows that if you're travelling too fast, should I say, whereby you might be in a car or just sprinting at top speed everywhere, it will not register that as you walking those kilometres.
Yeah, I think it's good in that way because it means that you can't cheat.
Yeah.
It means that it really is encouraging you in that way to get out and actually do the walking. And I think as well, you don't, because you're so focused on, you know, catching Pokemon or getting to the next Pokestop or finding that gym, that you don't really notice how far you're walking.
Yeah.
Because on mine, I've managed to clock up just over 20 kilometres in, about a week?
Yeah.
And I didn't notice at all that I'd walked that far, and when I look back I was really surprised. It's really good exercise. I think in this day and age that's something that everybody needs, a game that encourages you to be active, because everybody moans that consoles and PCs, they encourage you to just sit down, sit on the sofa and be a bit lazy, and this is just the complete opposite.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's as we mentioned earlier, it's great for getting you out there and and meeting new people, which is great. I'm not too sure about the poker dates thing though. Have you read about this?
No, I haven't.
The Independent put a story out there, I believe yesterday, that an American company's already set up an app where Pokemon Go players can basically be matched together on their app and will potentially go on dates. But it costs you $15 every time you want to meet up with someone. So maybe just go out and just meet people.
I was going to say, it's that social anyway that you could literally
you might find
just
love.
Yeah, there's always the chance.
So looking kind of down the road with this, maybe if we're talking 2 months down the road, 6 months down the road, what do you think needs to be changed or introduced to this app to keep people interested?
Well, I think more features definitely, because at the moment, though it's really exciting, I was expecting on release there to be a few more things. I mean, obviously you can go out, you can catch Pokemon, Pokestops, Pokegyms, eggs, but that's kind of about it. And I was expecting a bit more. I'd really like to see a multiplayer aspect where you can battle against friends or trade Pokemon with friends.
Trade seems to be a massive request from people.
Yeah, especially like if you live in different areas. Like I have friends who have got the common type of Pokemon where they are very different to the ones where I am, and it would be really good because I can't catch the ones that they have because they just aren't in my area.
Yeah.
So it'd be really good to be able to get together and trade, so then they can have Pokemon that they don't usually see, and I can have Pokemon that I don't usually see.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it'd be nice to do it through Wi-Fi instead of the old Game Boy days. I'm sure you remember when you used to have to get a massive cable which weighed probably like a micro scooter. Carting that round a playground and trading over because your friend had Pokemon Red and you had Pokemon Blue and you couldn't get certain Pokemon, and I do miss them days. But no, if it did it through Wi-Fi, that'd be great. It would be quite cool though. I think with that I'd probably have to be within a certain distance of someone. Otherwise you're just kind of just setting up a potential just transferring Pokemon across countries, which I could see the appeal of that, but I think that's quite cool that you'd have to meet up and trade as you would if you had to battle. But I'm sure they're going to also introduce maybe the next generation of Pokemon possibly after that.
Yeah, that would be really exciting to see, once everybody's once people have started to get towards the end of this, and maybe they're thinking, I'm not sure whether I want to carry on playing it, for them to introduce more Pokemon and say, well actually, look at how many more you've got to catch. But one thing that I would also like to see more of is, I was reading a piece yesterday about Mewtwo, Zapdos, Articuno and Moltres, and because obviously great legendary Pokemon, everybody wants to catch them, but they were saying they may exist in the game. Apparently somebody hacked into Niantic servers, and the spawn sort of rate, or the base rate spawn for those creatures is 0, which means that it's actually not possible to catch them in the wild or to come across them. So they exist in the game, but you can't get them, which I don't know whether that's something that they're planning to introduce at a later date, perhaps during special events, or...
This was the thing on the advert, wasn't it, where they sort of... Actually, just talking about the advert briefly, this is the first advert I've seen for a game where the reaction of crowds in it actually looks like how it does in real life. Like that video the other week when I think it was a Squirtle or a Charmander was in New York Centre in Central Park, and there was like 400 people running after it. I mean, there was about 30 of us the other day in Tamworth running after a Squirtle which was down the back alley, which just looked so dodgy, but it was hilarious and it was fun. But going back to the advert, they had this thing where they were saying like you might be informed that there's a Mewtwo in Times Square at a certain time on a certain date, and you all have to be down there and basically just go for it. Whether it's just one or a limited number, or everyone can get it there as long as you're there within a certain time. I can see them doing stuff like that, because obviously you wouldn't wander into a Mewtwo in the middle of your back garden or anything, so I'm assuming that they're going to hold it for special events, like the legendary Pokemon. It's legendary, so you need to make it quite a big event. Or they might do some sort of kind of prize, I guess, or codes to get them.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the kind of microtransactions in the game? Because they seem quite fair. I mean, you can get free stuff from Pokestops.
Yeah, because obviously you buy Pokecoins, which you can get in the game, but they're not as easy to get as you would think. I think, is it you have to leave a Pokemon in a gym for more than 24 hours undefeated, I think, to collect Pokecoins. So, and obviously that's quite a challenge, especially, I mean, I've been keeping track of the ones where I live, and they've been changing colours about 5 or 6 times a day. I'm not opposed to microtransactions, they need to make money somehow, because this game will have been expensive to make.
Oh, yeah.
I personally won't be spending money on it. But I think, obviously, the issue with that is that they need to make Pokecoins more readily available in the game, I think, because at the moment they're quite difficult to get. And I think if they made them a bit more readily available, then people wouldn't be quite so frustrated with the microtransactions, because I have heard a few people say, oh, this is silly, because I'd like to use Pokecoins to buy this item or to buy this item, but I can't because I can't get them.
Yeah, like the backpack upgrade, which I think is obviously carrying more items, and I believe that means you can carry more Pokemon.
I think there's 2 separate ones as well, for Pokemon
separate.
and one
Okay.
for items. But yeah, it's things like that. I think if they made it a bit more readily available, people would be much happier. Obviously, they may then not spend as much money, so it depends on what, I suppose, it's getting that balance right of players still being willing to buy the coins so that they can make some money, but also the happiness of players. Because obviously, if people aren't happy, they might not play the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure they will introduce stuff over the coming months, and mainly look at that server and make sure that's running on a good standard for everyone, really, because I know a lot of people who rather cheekily got the app early in the UK and said, oh, it's fantastic, it's running great, and then as soon as it officially launched in the UK, obviously the amount of people who downloaded it was like, oh no, it's not working there. And then, of course, there's been several countries around the world who've now got access to it. I know Canada got it over the weekend, and that's probably not helping. Fingers crossed they sort that out soon. It's also another interesting fact that McDonald's look like they're jumping on board with this, where they're going to have, not in England and kind of across the UK so much at the moment, but I think Japan has struck a deal with them where their stores are going to be Pokestops and various places to go where you can access items and hopefully do kind of battles and trading, and then get a cheeseburger, which is ideal.
Well, I think it's a good idea, really, because it's, if people are going to go there anyway, it's good publicity for them, and it encourages people to go in. But I think because obviously in this country especially, a lot of religious monuments or churches are Pokestops or gyms, and I believe the Church of England released a statement saying, this is a really good time, there's going to be more young people around churches than ever before, so why not make them feel welcome? Instead of saying, don't come near the church if you're playing a game, why not encourage them? Yeah. Because it's a chance for them. And I know there's some pubs and bars that have got sort of signs in the windows saying Pokemon trainers welcome, come in and have a drink. And obviously that's great for them, because if people are going to be standing outside anyway using the Pokestop and they see that sign, they're going to go, oh, okay, yeah. So it's going to create business for them as well. Yeah. Entrepreneurs
Out there, and the kind of the businesses that are embracing this have definitely made money from it, like you're saying. And I know there's a little girl who was pictured the other day in America who she set up a little Pokestop outside her house with little crisps and kind of various snacks and drinks for people walking around, which is fantastic. It's showing that kind of community spirit and how this app is bringing people together, which is great. I think there's been a lot more positive than negative stuff, so I'm happy with how it looks so far, and excited to see where it goes next.
Yeah, and I think with this one being so successful, it kind of raises the questions of what other games could we see on mobile platforms. But I think there's an Animal Crossing game coming later this year, which is obviously another sort of Nintendo traditional series, which I'm quite excited for because I used to play that when I was younger as well. Yeah. And I'm quite looking forward to that. And then there's a Final Fantasy game coming next month, I believe. Again, a really big series. And there's also a Kingdom Hearts game out already, which came out last month, I believe. And so there's a lot more games seem to be moving towards this mobile platform.
Yeah.
And so it begs the question of what other games could we see? And I mean, I'd quite like to see things like Spyro, you know, the old style games, and especially with like Crash Bandicoot being remastered.
Yeah.
I think that would be amazing to then have like a mobile game, maybe to go even alongside it, because you know people love these games and the mobile platform's so mobile.
Yeah.
Everybody has a phone. They can use it when they like. You can take it anywhere with you. Like I was sat on a train yesterday and I was bored, so I was playing Pokemon Go, and it's so much easier because you know you don't need a huge piece of equipment to play these games, and it makes me wonder if more game developers and designers are going to be looking at the mobile platform as the future.
Absolutely, that and augmented reality. That seems to have been something that no one's really. I wouldn't say no one. I mean, a small few have kind of jumped on it and done smaller projects, but this is the first one which has really kind of stood out from the rest, I think. Unfortunately, though, the augmented reality is what seems to be one of the key things that seems to be killing your battery, which is why I've turned mine off, and I've kind of just got the generic green background or whichever background comes up behind it, and it's also not as distracting.
Yeah, I found it's much easier to catch Pokemon with the augmented reality switched off, because I don't know whether it's sort of the depth of vision, but I'm able to throw the Pokeballs a lot easier without the augmented reality.
Yeah, seems. I don't know if it's because you're sort of conscious of people walking past and maybe the AR's kind of moving the Pokemon a little bit based on where you stood. It is quite funny to like see one like sat at the end of your bed or sat in a car or sat in the middle of the street. But yeah, I think if someone's wanting to kind of save on the battery life and try and make it a little bit simpler, I'd probably turn that setting off. Which is also, just as mentioned with the battery, probably best to bring some sort of portable charger with you, because this game does like to drain it.
Yes, definitely. I've seen quite a few people, especially in bigger areas like cities where obviously there's so many more Pokestops and so many more gyms. I've seen quite a few people with phones attached to portable chargers or, you know, things like that, just walking around, or even people, I think people live streaming with sort of cameras. They're carrying their phone around and then sort of a GoPro in front of them focusing on themselves as they, I don't know whether they're doing YouTube videos or streaming, but it was certainly interesting to see.
Yeah, it has brought quite a few people out and about with various tech bits and streaming. Okay, well, moving on to a couple of game reviews over the last couple of weeks. I'm going to talk briefly about Hitman. Did review episode 3, which was based in Marrakesh, which is quite cool actually. How it's sort of based in this really traditional Arabic kind of stalls and little alleyways, and then you've got a building which kind of looks like IKEA spat it out in some sort of when you walk around IKEA, and it looks like how they make their desks and living rooms. It's sort of, looks like someone lives here, but I'm pretty sure they don't. So it's sort of that traditional value of this futuristic building that you have to break into and assassinate the target, who also looks like he's Swedish, and I'm pretty sure he's Swedish. So that's quite a good link with IKEA. But yeah, it's pretty standard for the Hitman series. You've got targets. There's multiple ways of going about it. The one thing I did like about this one was kind of there was a lot more climbing up on buildings and kind of sneaking round and dropping down drain pipes and being really like sneakative and this sort of this spy, which you don't normally get with Hitman. It's more kind of find the best disguise and sneak your way in and just try and avoid eye contact with anyone who might recognise you. That tends to be the case with most of my playthroughs on Hitman. So yeah, there's going to be a review of that on the CIN video games channel if you want to check that out. The one that's going on, well, it will be on by the time this podcast goes on our website, is 7 Days to Die, which you've heard a little bit about this, I believe.
I have. I've watched a few streams of it as well, and it seems it's a bit different, isn't it? Because it's sort of a zombie survival game, but also like building and crafting.
I've basically called it Minecraft for adults, or like a really grown-up Minecraft, but with zombies in it. To be honest, it's addictive. I think the crafting side of it is why it's so addictive. But it isn't the best looking game.
No.
comparing it to Minecraft again, it's only slightly better in graphics than like a pixelated kind of Minecraft world. The servers haven't been great for me, I must be honest. The online modes have kicked me off near enough every time I've tried. Because online you can either go through the sort of online private mode where you can just invite friends in and you sort of can work together to create this utopia where you're sort of keeping out the zombies and whatnot, or you can go online where it's PvP, where you can essentially spend hours on end surviving, building a great base, and then some other character comes along and just kills you and steals it, which is the common outcome for online. So I've been focusing more on the single player, which I also like the fact that you can kind of customise your gameplay. I obviously went for a bit more easier mode and turned the number of zombie encounters down, which still has proved to to be quite difficult. I also made the daylight hours longer, so I'd be able to go out more and scavenge and find items, because the map is huge. If you're running around, I think a minute in the game lasts, on my settings, lasts about 3 seconds. So if you think about it, you haven't got long to go out, do everything you need to do and get back before the sun goes down. Everything gets a bit scary and you start wanting to rock in a corner and cry yourself to sleep. But no, it's great. You craft from natural materials, you create weapons, armour, building materials to enhance your building. Because I started off with kind of a wooden cabin and soon found out that zombies love to just smash through that like it's made of crackers. So I've had to start crafting things like a forge to then make forged iron, to then create brickworks and steel and iron doors which are reinforced. All these things that have sort of gradually progressed. I think after about 10 days, in-game days, I think I'd mastered it a little bit and I'd got quite a strong fort, and I went down the Donald Trump route where I kind of built a huge wall which went all the way down to the river, which basically blocked off a load of flowing zombies, and also if I followed the wall I found water, because you have to fill up jars and then take them back to your fire and put them on the campfire to basically make them into boiled water instead of murky river water which gives you diarrhea. And there's all these things like overheating, you can freeze to death, dehydrate, eating raw food obviously makes you sick, so then you have to craft medicine, you have to find medicine. There's loads of aspects to this game. It's very similar to Ark Survived, which I tried and reviewed, which was essentially the same kind of game concept but with dinosaurs instead of zombies. It is fun. Obviously the graphics aren't great, the kind of mechanics of fighting isn't great either, to be honest. I'm not really selling this quite well on the visuals or the gameplay, but it's very addictive. Have you ever found that kind of thing where you like a game for one specific reason other than a good story mode? Or
yeah, I think the like the building aspect of Fallout 4 and also on one of the DLCs on Skyrim, I spent a lot more time on that than I realised that I did, especially Fallout 4, like scrapping everything, literally everything, in sight. I mean, I think I must have spent at one stage about half an hour just scrapping stuff, and I didn't realise how much time had passed. But I suppose it's very similar to The Sims in that way, which is something I used to play a lot when I was younger, and that is just building and then watching people live. And I think sometimes I used to put about 8 hours into that without realising quite how much time had gone by. And I mean, the concept of the game, when you explain it, people sometimes go, why is that interesting? Why is that fun? And it's that sort of thing that you can't explain why you like it, but you just don't want to switch it off, and you just want to keep going back to it. Yeah,
absolutely. I sort of found myself a bit like Sims, actually, where I found this kind of routine of, I knew that there was enough light at maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning in the game, where, not in real life, good grief, I wouldn't go up at 4 o'clock to play that, where I'd go out and I'd be able to start scavenging and hunting safely, that I could see everything around me. And I'd kind of look on the map and think, right, okay, I haven't really been to this area, so I'm going to kind of push it a little bit, and then the map will obviously update it so I can see where I've been. Find certain materials in certain areas, like there's a bit where, because I understand the plot, if anything, is that there's been a nuclear strike across America, and Arizona seems to have survived somehow. But there's one area where it's really scorched and like a charcoal kind of lands where it's just full of iron that you can, and steel that you can craft down and take with you. But again, looking at concepts of that game where you move into certain areas and you've got to be cautious of what clothes you've got with you and sort of how much you're carrying, because you can get overheated, get too cold, and various other things. But yeah, this routine where I kind of venture out, scavenge, search a certain area, try and find some food, and then sort of by about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, I think, right, I've got to get back now, or I've got to be at home for like 10. It's almost like a curfew, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you basically take all your items upstairs and get them on the campfire and cook and drink stuff and craft stuff and get ready for the next morning. The game seems to do a thing, I think, at the moment where sort of every 7 days it really tests you. I was doing really well. I seemed to be staying alive for quite a few days. And then on day 22, I do remember it well, there was just loads of screaming and howling outside. I thought, oh my god, what is going on? So at this point, I've got like a side door where I can access the roof. And I went up on the roof and I was like, oh crap. There was about 6 or 7 zombies. Then there was 2 cops who are like these obese zombies that spit acid. And then there was these feral zombies who are probably about 6'2" in height and are like the strength of bears. And they have to have headshots to like take them down. And they just were eating my base. They were just chomping their way through it. And I unfortunately, because it's a first-person view game, I unfortunately looked over the edge too far and fell off. So not only did I fall and break my leg and I was like on 10% of my health, they just jumped on and ate my face. Which then when you die, you drop all your kit wherever you died. And luckily I died just outside my house, so I spawned in my bed and then had to kind of sneakily run out around the side and grab all my stuff back. But another annoying thing about the game that I found in the gameplay is that if you die or if there's certain things you do, it drops your health and stamina cap. So you have to then really work hard. Say if you die, your health goes down by 10 points, your maximum health. So then you have to eat loads at some point to kind of work it back up.
That sounds a bit annoying.
Yeah, it's really, because like my wellness, which is basically my max health, should be 200. But at the moment it's about 110. But unless I just sit next to a fire and eat loads of steak or corn on the cob or bacon and eggs, it will stay like that, which is frustrating. But there are also perks and abilities that you can upgrade where you'll stop using as much stamina, you won't have to eat and drink as much, you become stronger. Certain weapons you use, like your bow and arrow or crossbow or blunt weapons, knife weapons, they'll become more powerful. So there's such a wide aspect to this game where that's what seems to be keeping me coming back to it. And I seem to enjoy it even though there's no narrative, there's no one talking. The zombies look like something from when we were playing on the PS1. But overall, it's a decent game. I've given it a 7 out of 10, just on the fact that I'm pretty much addicted to it. But other than that, if it had a few upgrades in kind of how it looked, I think that would do it. That would do it the world of good. Have you got any more topics you want to bring up?
Well, I was thinking with, obviously the Xbox One is bringing out a lot of backwards compatible games now.
Uh-huh.
I've been wondering, how is the PS4 going to sort of compete with that?
Don't seem to really be doing a good job at kind of keeping up, do they?
No, I mean, I was reading yesterday about PlayStation Now, which is, it was described as the Netflix of PS3 games. You pay a subscription of, I think it's about $12.99 a month, which is on top of your
$6.99 a month, is it, for the PlayStation Network anyway?
I'm not sure, it was on top of the PlayStation Network.
Oh, it's on top of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have to have, I think somebody had reported that you had to have sort of decent internet. It was sort of like a 5 meg download speed. If you didn't have that, if your internet was slow, then it wouldn't work. And it's sort of like you rent the game. So with the subscription, you can play, I think it was something, they had like over 250 PS3 games, which is obviously, that's a huge number of games. There's loads to play. Mm-hmm. But $12.99 a month on top of your online membership is quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
And especially like on Xbox like if you've got the Xbox 360 game, you can just stick the CD in, you don't have to buy it again, and it'll work. Whereas there's no compensation from what I can gather on this. Like if you already own the game, the PS3 game, it doesn't matter. You don't get any money back for that. You don't have to pay less for that. It's still the same set price.
I think this might be that service where if you stop paying, then you don't have access to those games anymore that you've downloaded. Is that correct?
I think it's like you rent them for a certain amount of time, and then if you get rid of your subscription, then that's it. They're gone. Which is, it's an interesting service, an interesting idea, but I would say $12.99 is quite steep.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, take for instance with my Xbox. I mean, it's probably about $5.99 a month for Xbox Live, and then on top of that, I have the Now TV app. So you're looking probably about £15 for entertainment and movies on that, and then it does add up, and it kind of restricts you from wanting to use a lot of these apps that are available on consoles.
Like I think that the number of games that you can play on this app is it's really good. Over 250 games. That's a huge number. But I think I would be really annoyed if I already owned a game on PS3 and I wanted to play it, but then I still had to pay to get it through this service, because you think, well, I've already paid for it once. Why should I have to pay for it again? And like I know the system on them isn't, like the software isn't compatible, and that's I think where the main issue comes from. But I think I'm starting to wonder now if PlayStation really need to push for it and start being a bit more, doing a bit more for it, because otherwise they're going to lose out competition wise to the Xbox, I think.
Yeah, and I mean the PlayStation has been from the majority. I think that has been the kind of the front runner for a while. Xbox has, I mean, as an Xbox owner. Xbox One owner, I mean, they are a fantastic bit of tech, aren't they? I mean, I think I find Xbox Live a lot more social than maybe the PlayStation version. But a lot of my friends seem to be more PlayStation gamers, and there's been quite a few next-gen, current gen exclusives which seemed better on the PlayStation. And we discussed a few of those in the free podcast. But yeah, as you've said, I mean, this is something that could swing a lot of people more to, if they enjoy playing original games, like Red Dead, for instance. Like, PlayStation are missing out on that. I've loved having that back. I absolutely adored that game. And having it back on Xbox through backward compatibility has been amazing. And it's also great now that I can stream it and I can record videos from it, which I couldn't do on the Xbox 360. There's a few games out there for the backward compatibility that recently, like the Gears series, there's a few that I wanted to play back through those. And as you've said, that could swing a few gamers over to the Xbox side, I think.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, PlayStation have got the VR coming up, so I think that's going to keep quite a few people occupied, isn't it?
Yes. That's definitely an exciting announcement.
Absolutely.
The fact that they're doing it all themselves, they don't have to rely on any other manufacturers as well, is really good for them, because it means, they've got control of everything. Yeah.
So it just seems to be where Xbox is going to go with Scorpio at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether they announce any more VR sort of news.
Yeah, it's not really any kind of clear indication of what they're doing or what route they're going. They've got the HoloLens, which isn't... It's technically virtual reality, but it doesn't seem to be kind of an in-game sort of thing, does it? It seems to just be something that will appear in the middle of your room as like an extra, like an add-on sort of thing.
Yeah, when PlayStation announced their VR things at E3, I was expecting Xbox to have done something similar, and I was surprised, because they usually tend to announce, very similar things. They already know what the other one's going to announce, and so they go for the same thing to compete with each other. And I was really surprised that Xbox didn't really mention anything about VR. I thought that would be a road that they would go down, especially as PlayStation have done it, to say, well, actually, we can do that too. We are keeping up with our competition.
Well, I think we'll sure wrap that up. We did speak for quite some time in the last podcast, which unfortunately we had to cut quite a lot out due to editing problems and all that malarkey. But thank you for coming back in again, Chantal. I'm sure we'll be meeting up again for the August podcast. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you've got Chantal over at ShanatellaSJ. I've changed my Twitter now, so I must inform you that it's now Sam Jones Journo. It's not Harold S. Jones anymore, so if you're that interested in following me, please move over to the new one. And you can also catch up on all the latest news on the CIN Video Games channel, which is one of the links is www.tamworthherald.co.uk/video-games. And we'll see you for August. Bye bye.